Welcome everybody to our general body meeting, keyboard shortcuts mastering Microsoft Word. Happy you could join us and happy that you're here to just share a little time of knowledge sharing, skill sharing, hearing some announcements from us. And we're just excited to bring this all to you. We have some announcements and fun activity to go along with it. And these are just good tips to have as a TechCom, right, as a technical communicator. Keyboard shortcuts, typing, writing. Uh, the goal of this presentation is mostly going to be to improve your productivity, make you type faster, and eventually, if you're not already at that stage, you can just ditch the mouse pointer when you're typing to do half the things that you already do. So hopefully by the end of this, you walk away learning something. And first off is some announcements that we got. So on Monday, March 15th at 4 p.m., we're going to have an STC Summit interest meeting. So the STC Summit, for anyone unfamiliar, is Technical Communication Summit held by SEC during the summer. They talk about different topics in TechCom. There are a number of different presenters there, professionals, presenters, experts in the field who are just there to give messages and just speaks and give speeches and share their insight on topics in TechCom. And it's definitely valuable if you're currently pursuing TechCom or even if you're in it right now. The speakers have a lot of great things to share. So this year, that conference is going to be virtual, held from June 5 to 9. And the perk is that there are a few ways that you can attend for free as a student, because usually it's paid, but we're looking into a few ways that you can go with FTC. So we're going to have an interest meeting about that this coming Monday. So if you're interested, be sure to join us. We'll be talking more about the summit and ways you can attend for free. And if you're currently an STC student member, there's an opportunity you can take advantage of right now, which is volunteering at the summit. You can go to the link on the slide, go to the STC website and put in your information, your credentials, and submit that you want to volunteer there, and then you get free attendance that way. So you don't have to go through any other process. As long as you volunteer, you get there for free. So that's one way. But even if you're not, we're going to be discussing ways you can attend for free coming up this Monday. And next up is a look forward at our next general body meeting 2 weeks from now, Friday, March 26th, which is Through the Generations, the Enduring Value of TechCom, featuring guest speaker Lori Meyer. So if you were at the annual meeting a couple weeks back, you recognize Lori Meyer as one of our speakers. She spoke on career prep. And this time she's returning to just do an even further discussion on careers, this time on the value of having a career in technical communication, why it has longevity, why it's lucrative, and many other reasons why it just has value as a lifelong career path. So 2 weeks from now, she'll be joining us to share that message. She's excited to share with us. She's going to have a Q&A right after. So it'll be then. It'll be in the evening at 7 p.m. this time. So just come ready to be prepared and receive a great message from her. And then beginning of the month, April 1st is a video game night from FTC. So we're going to be having this game night. We're going to be just spending time having fun. We got some games already planned, like Jackbox Party Pack, Among Us, Scriblio. We're open to take any suggestions. Basically, this will just be our time to hang out, have a great time, chill, play some fun games. So definitely make it if you can. We're still deciding on the time, but yeah, definitely take that opportunity to come and join us and have some fun as a group. And finally, here are just some links if you want to connect with us or if you haven't connected on some of our platforms yet. We have our Discord server, our Facebook group. On our link tree is a link to all of our other pages on social media, on and off social media, our website, so on and so forth. And you can always email us with any questions or comments that you have about anything going on in the club. So feel free to check out those links anytime and reach out to us. So next up, we have an activity, Kahoot. Might be a word that some of you just like lives on in ages past, like Kahoot. I used to play that a long time ago. But for this specific activity, word shortcuts, thought it'd be fun to put together a quiz on who knows the most word shortcuts or who can compete against each other to know the most. So we just prepared a little something for you. So if you have your phones out, you know the rules. Kahoot.it, type that into your browser. We're just going to be having short little quiz time before we jump into the word shortcuts presentation. And I got it right here. All right, so Kahoot.it, and then the code up on the screen, 9952115. All right, so 4 so far. Anybody else planning on joining or currently joining? And also, I'm wondering who K is. I can't really tell. Michael, Ben, Sky, and K. All right, we got D joining us. Oh, okay, that's Caitlin. You know, Michael, you might be right. Sentient Kahoot. Caitlin is Sentient Kahoot. Oh, welcome, Jessica. Yeah, it's great to see you join. And yeah, fighting with word, the perfect workshop for you to join in. Um, right, cool. Basically, we're just a trivia game. We're going to be going through question by question about Microsoft Word shortcuts and all of that. Happy you could join us. And also, since if you have any advice on Word or anything as we're hopping through, feel free to hop in, shoot a message, or even just interrupt, because always great to learn more about Word. Alrighty, so in that case, we got us five. Guess should we go and continue, or Jessica, did you want to join in?
I forgot that I could speak. I know that's fine. I'll just watch you guys play, and I'll pipe up if I can see it.
Okay, gotcha.
And you know what's funny is I just kind of might know, but I don't even know if half of them are still here in Office 365. That's the other thing down. So
We will see. We will see. Who knows? Might still be in there.
yeah.
But yeah. Alrighty. So in that case, we can start it off. Microsoft Word shortcuts. All right. Easy one. So far, so good. All right. Another easy one. Sky just killing it with the fast answers so far. Y'all got to catch up. Alrighty. Alrighty. I like this. Lightning rounds. It's going to go by quick. Sky's still on fire. Okay. We can just keep on blazing through these. Ooh, Ben in the lead. Got to watch out for Ben. This is like half can you get it right, half how fast can you get it. Okay. Nice. Continuing. All right. Ben's still on fire. Ooh, split. This one I was just finding out as I was researching this actually. It's a pretty cool trick. Control delete deletes the word. Sky picking up the lead again. Y'all gotta watch out. Right, easy. Control V. Next up. All right, Control A. And halfway through. Easy. I'm like, if this one doesn't go by in 5 seconds, I wouldn't know what to do. Next up. Split between them. Yeah. This was always a weird one because you got Control L for left, Control R for right, then Control E for center. All right, interesting. All right, continuing. Okay, nice, nice. Control home, very useful one. Ooh, Caitlin. Now Caitlin's on fire. Watch out. Control O. Control Z. One of those must knows. 3/4 through. Okay. Ooh, that point lead. Dang. Y'all got to catch up to Caitlin. Easy. 17 out of 20. All right, another quickie. Dang. Last few. Yes, Michael, got to pump up those rookie numbers. Yep, control backspace. Deletes a whole entire word. All right, last two. Alrighty. Second to last question. Ooh. All right, let's see. No, this is the last question, I mean. Yep, control W. All right, nice. I go third, Ben second, and then Caitlin, who apparently said she had no energy, but then comes in with all the energy and just just gets all the points. I don't know. Gotta watch out for Caitlin. All right, nice job, everyone. That was a good lightning round full of questions. Unfortunately, I didn't come up with a prize, so please accept this congratulations. I'll come up with something. Who knows? But yeah, good game, everyone. Kind of want to just stay jamming to this music, but we got a presentation to go to. All right, nice job again. So yeah, that was just a short little introduction to some of the stuff I'll be recovering in the presentation. But yeah, tons of yes. Caitlin, post your most recent meme in Discord. That's a surprise. After this, we got to post our memes in her honor. Yes. So after this Kahoot, just want to go through the keyboard shortcuts themselves. So let's spare no more time and get right into it. And as you can see, there are a lot of common ones, a lot of uncommon ones. Did my best to see all the ones I could uncover. I'll be going through them kind of quick because there's a lot, but I'll try to keep it a good pace too. So ones I'm going to be covering, there's the essentials, some for selecting text, some for spacing out your text, navigation and utility throughout a document, and then just some miscellaneous ones, which either are uncommonly used or so on and so forth. So the first tip, control is your best friend. If you're not using control when you're typing to do all these things, if you're just typing straight ahead, you're missing out on a lot of shortcuts. Control is the key that will bind you to all those shortcuts that we just mentioned that we're going to be talking about. For copying, for pasting, for shifting text, for moving around text, navigating, control is where your hand is going to be a lot of the time as you're trying to modify all the text you put onto a page. So definitely keep it in mind. If you can think of a command, it's probably control plus one or two other keys. So always have it in mind. And some of them are self-explanatory, control C for copy. Some of them are less self-explanatory, but you know the control is half. If you know control, you're halfway there for most of the things that you're doing. And here's just a list of the essentials which I put together. These are your bread and butter, the basic ones, but the best ones too. So if there's any to memorize, it's the ones on this list. Control S for saving, Control C for copy, X for cut, V for paste, A for select all, Z and Y undo and redo, and then some for the basic text modification, BUI, bold, underline, italics. So these are pretty much the 10 most important keys that you're going to be using, either you're just typing. They're pretty much universal. They can go outside of Microsoft Word too, but these are just the 10 most commonly used ones for the most part. And Control S, I just want to highlight that one especially. Always be saving. Pretty much make it muscle memory to save and hit just Control S when you finish a paragraph or a sentence. Just Control S. Because sometimes it can be a hassle if you just want to mouse over all the way to the save button. You're like, yeah, I won't do that. I'll just keep typing. And then it's 2 a.m. and you've typed a 10-page paper and you haven't saved yet. And then the power goes out. Or your cat steps on your keyboard, something like that. Uh, so if you waste time, or if you decide not to waste time going to save and you end up having something happen, you're gonna wish that you just smash Control S randomly. So that's one of the most important ones. The rest of them, copy, paste, common ones, good to know. Good to just even put on a sticky note if you haven't memorized some of them yet. Then the second tip is Shift is your next best friend. Sorry, Control, but Shift is also pretty much best friend material. Shift is the one you're going to be using a lot when you're trying to navigate through text or select text, especially. And this is where a lot of the avoiding using your mouse pointer comes in, because instead of just clicking and dragging, the Shift button does pretty much all of that for you. So using Shift, you can select text. You pretty much won't need to use a cursor half the time if you're keeping in mind that Shift is one of those other important cornerstone keys. So here are just a few that I put together. And of course, the first one, just as the ground rule, left and right, move individually by one character. Everybody, I mean, you need to know that when you're using a computer. But shift left and right, that's when you can select individual characters. So instead of trying to drag a mouse little by little, one character by one character, you can just mouse to click where you want to go, or head to where you want to go. Shift left, right, you select one by one characters. And after that is control left and right. You hop left and right by an entire word. And if you combine that with shift, you hop to left and right while you're selecting that word. And that can be multiple words at once if you just keep holding it down. So control, shift, left, right, yep, word at a time, word at a time. You're selecting all of it as you do that. So it definitely saves time versus clicking and dragging over the exact number of words you want to do versus, oh, I want to select these three words. Control, shift, right three times. It does the same job with less movement. And the other one, pretty much same concept. Control up and down moves you up and down an entire line, and shift up and down selects the entire line as well until the start or end of the line. So if you're at the start of a paragraph, you want to select maybe half of it, 3 lines out of 6, for example. Instead of dragging all the way, just shift down, down, down. You selected the 3 lines, just like that. And a lot of these things are mostly just really time savers because if you do this and make the muscle memory, then you're just selecting and editing text a lot faster and more precisely too, because sometimes mouse can be imprecise. And so I heard you like shortcuts. So here's some shortcuts for your shortcuts. Yes, like the ones we mentioned in the Kahoot, there are some shortcuts for just instead of selecting and deleting or doing whatever you want to text, just delete it right away. 2 buttons, like you don't even need to drag or select or anything. Control backspace deletes the word behind the cursor. Control delete deletes the word in front of the cursor. So just get right to the word that you want. Use one of those shortcuts, and then it's gone. No selecting, no mousing over, no anything. It's just gone, like blipped away. Um, and Alt backspace or Alt delete, they're another way to undo an action. If it's just your style, maybe you really like the Alt key, it's one of your favorite keys ever, you can use Alt backspace or Alt delete instead of Control Y. So it's just an alternate way, but definitely remember Control backspace, Control delete. Instead of holding down backspace for 10 seconds, you can just Control, tap, 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 words are gone. So simple, shortcuts for your shortcuts. And next are some for spacing and indentation. So when you're writing papers or assignments or anything like that, for example, a lot of the times you're going to want to format your work in a specific, exact sort of way. You're going to want to indent certain paragraphs in one way. You're going to want hanging indents. You're going to want alignment in a certain way. All those things, there are shortcuts for those versus having to go through each word menu or digging through the ribbon to find what you need to do. And sometimes that's the most difficult part, just formatting, if you have to go searching for every single formatting trick that you need. So, of course, some of the basics, tab just indents or puts an indentation between words. Just tap it, indentation appears. Most basic indentation key. And another basic one, other basic ones, Control L R E J for aligning a paragraph or just any part of the text, left, right, center, justified. Um, so L and R self-explanatory. E just one to memorize basically, because C decided to be greedy and take the copy shortcut. So E is just here like, okay, I'll take center, and then J is justified. And justified is when all the text is spaced out evenly across a line versus ending right a little bit before the line. So just some nuances there, but those are good keys to keep in mind. And some lesser known ones that are really useful in Word 2 and even outside of Word. Shift plus Enter jumps down by one line, but with no gap. So usually if you hit Enter in Microsoft Word, you jump to a new paragraph and it puts a little bit of space in between that and the next paragraph. Shift Enter, you jump down, but there's no space in between it. So it's really good if you want just a really tight area of the page, or if you want to go down to a next bullet point, but you don't want to jump to a whole, you don't want space between it, Shift Enter. Even outside of Word, here's just a little tip too. If you're in a messaging app or even something like Discord, where Enter is the key that sends the message, and sometimes it might look like there's no way to put multiple paragraphs in a message, but Shift Enter is the way to do that. It's pretty much the space, the alternative way to space. So if you're typing out a message, Shift Enter, you hop to a new line, and it doesn't send off the message that you want to do. Definitely very useful. So keep that in mind for Word and for messaging. And finally for Word, Control Enter, page break at the cursor's position. So if you're typing and you want to go to a new page, pretty much rule of thumb, almost never a good idea to just hit enter a lot of times to get to a new page. Um, and there are buttons on the ribbon for it, but an easy way is just control enter. You hop directly to the next page and it creates a new page for you right there and then. Because sometimes if you hit enter a lot of times, you decide you want to change the font size of the whole document, that spacing becomes really uneven and it might not even end you up on that the top of that new page anymore after you change the font size. So control enter, it guarantees that wherever you did that action, it's going to start a new page. The text that follows it is always going to be right at the top of that new page. So keep that one in mind if you're typing multi-page documents as well. Ooh, and top secret indentation tips. Very top secret. Sometimes you have to go all the way into word menus to figure out all these sorts of indentation things. The bane of my own existence, I know, and many others, is citations, and also just um, indenting paragraphs, but the whole paragraph at the same time. It can be a nightmare sometimes if Word doesn't want to cooperate or if the tool just isn't where you expect it to be. But the first tip, Control M indents the whole paragraph. So some examples on the right. If you just tab something normally at the beginning of a paragraph, just drops a beginning, the first line indentation. But that might not be what you want. If you hit Control M, the whole paragraph and anything that you continue typing in that paragraph also gets indented. It's good for things like quotes. If you just want to separate text into something more, or you want to separate an entire paragraph from the rest of the paragraphs, it's good to indent that whole paragraph. Just hit Control M versus going through menus and doing all of that. And the next one, Control T. I figured this one out as I was researching for this presentation, and I am going to use this one so much. Hanging indent. If you have to do citations, for example, MLA, and it asks for having your citations be indented after the first line, this is the shortcut that does it for you. Hit Control T at the appropriate place, and it makes every line following the first indented. So if you're writing papers, doing assignments, you need a references page. Usually there are other ways that you can do that, but it is very finicky sometimes. You can try to do it by just hitting tab in the right places. The question is, where are those right places? And the second question is, does Word like me today? The answer is probably no. When you need Word most, it just decides not to like you. So tab is it works, but it's finicky. So that one's off the menu. The other option is going to the Word ribbon, going to Home, going to Paragraph, and then Settings, Special, and Hanging. So that string of button clicks, you can find that at the top of the ribbon, the Home ribbon. You can do all of that, and then you find the option to make the text hanging. But you see how much work that could require, and especially if you have multiple things that you want to have hanging indents for, a lot of work. So if you hit Control T, hanging indent, your citation is uh, formatted the way that you want it. No hassle, no figuring out if tab wants to work for you this particular day. Control T just works. So definitely keep this one in mind when you're making citations. And next up is navigation and utility. This is pretty much part two of the essential shortcuts, because these ones are ones that help you with file management and just navigating the whole document as well. So we saw some of them earlier. Control O opens a file. So say you already have Word open, you want to open another document. Control O, it puts you in the file explorer. You can find the other Word document that you want to open. Control N, new file, same thing. You have one document open. You want to open a completely separate one. Control N, new Word document right there. Control W closes your current file. Though it keeps Microsoft Word open. So say you're done with one assignment, you want it out of your way, but you want to start working on another one right after. Control W closes the current one and it just puts you on the blank front page of Microsoft Word. And side note, it's another one of those universal keys in that it works in Google Chrome and other web browsers. If you hit Control W, it closes the current tab, but doesn't close you out of the entire program. So think of it that way as well for Microsoft Word. Closes what you're looking at, but lets you keep working and open a new file if you want to. Control P, print. self-explanatory. Control F and H are find and replace text. So if before this you have been looking through an entire file for a specific word or all instances of a word, I'm very sorry, because there are shortcuts that will save you all that hassle and will do the finding for you. Because when in doubt, make Word work for you. Um, and this also works in web pages and browsers, by the way. Control F, go to that, type in the word or letters or characters, anything that you want, and it finds every instance of that in the text, in the document for you. And from there, you can choose what you want to do. Do you want to go through and replace a single instance? Do you want to delete a specific time that you find something? Look for errors? The choice is yours, but once you hit Control F and type in your selection, it highlights all the instances of a specific word that you've typed in. And Control H just goes a step further. It finds the text that you want, all instances of it, but you can replace it with another selection. So, say you have the word bird like 5 times in a document, but you want to replace it with something like, or you just want to replace it with birds. Like you put bird, but you realize it was an error. You want to put plural birds. So you hit Control H, find all instances of bird, control, and then the next option, replace it with birds. And then everything gets replaced. You can do it one by one as well. It works both ways. So definitely do that instead of looking through a whole document and seeing what you might need to know, or because you might miss it. There's always human error, but Microsoft Word does that for you. And finally, one that I've been using myself a whole lot more recently is Control K, which is inserting a link. Especially if you're working with a lot of links. If whether you're in Microsoft Word or an email, anything like that, um, like or just anything that involves linking to a lot of different resources. Say you have a bullet list of resources you want to link. Usually there's a button you can either right click and choose add a link to this text. That works. You can go to the ribbon and there's a button that says add a link to this text. That works too. But if you're doing all of that, constantly right clicking, mousing over to insert link, or going to the ribbon, mousing over to insert link, say you have a document that has 50 links in it, eventually you're going to get super tired of that. And you're going to wish there was an easier way. So you can highlight a selection of the text, hit Control K, and then immediately pops up. What link would you want to place in this? It is a lifesaver. Then you can just choose whatever link you want to put there. It's quick, it's simple. Control K is your go-to if you're working with links because you don't have to go through mousing over anything or any other menus. It just hops up right there. So again, overall, these are just some extra utility keys, pretty much part two of essentials you should know. And they just help you navigate in and between your documents. So definitely keep this small list in mind as well. And here are just some miscellaneous ones as well. So a few keys that we missed and some that are lesser known to you. I'll be honest, some of this was research and some of this was just me in Microsoft Word. Like, what does every single key do? I was curious for myself, including some of the number keys. And it's the more and more you dive into it, it's amazing how many things Microsoft Word fits into the keyboard. It really uses pretty much every single key for one reason or another. So just going down the list, Control Shift V, paste without formatting. Another lifesaver. If you highlight a text from the web, for instance, which is always there's always some formatting going on when you get something from a web page. So you select something from a page, you try to paste it into Word. Everybody knows the situation of just the text appearing very ugly. With the original formatting, which just doesn't fit into your document, it can be a different color. It can be highlighted, it can be underlined, it can have all the markings of yes, I was taken from a website. Please stare at me because I'm different from everything else on this page. And that can be hard to get rid of if you're doing it manually. But if you hit Control Shift V, everything they have copied, think of it as an alternative to Control V. Control V just pastes everything, dumps it onto the page. Control Shift V, it puts it onto the page with no formatting at all. Just regular text, no highlighting, no formatting, just the text. And from there, you can do what you want with it. So if you're ever copying things from another source, Control Shift V is your best friend. um, I was just reading chat, and yes, computers love to keep secrets. Um, and another one, Control Q. Another way of, well, this is for removing formatting. So if you highlight something, you decide, I don't want it to look this way anymore, or I don't want it to be spaced the way that it does. Control Q does that. And a step up, Control Shift N. In Microsoft Word, that's the action for removing all formatting between lines, whether it be spacing or indentation, any of that. Control Shift N just removes all of it from your site. Everything gets placed to its base form, all indented at the beginning of the line. You remove all of that. So those first three, definitely keep them in mind when you're working with different formatting. Control D opens the full font menu. If you want to do some fine tuning or look into even more of your computer secrets, just hit up the full menu. Control D pops it up right there. These ones are interesting. This is the part where I was just testing out keys that work. Control 1, 2, and 5. If you have a selection, they make your work single spaced, double spaced, or 1.5 spaced. So you can highlight your entire document. Another shortcut, Control A, highlight all of it, hit Control 1, it's all single spaced. Hit Control 2, all double spaced. Control 5, 1.5 space. It makes things a breeze. Saves a few seconds, but it's good to just, if you know how to do it, it just becomes muscle memory. Just select everything. Oh yeah, this was supposed to be double spaced. Control 2. There, very simple. Then the last couple, Control plus or minus, subscript or superscript. You can do that if you're using Chicago style for indentations. If you're working with any sort of chemical equation, need subscripts, things like that. Um, so Control plus and minus are for that. And then finally, these are the ones for increasing and decreasing font size. Control left bracket, right bracket, or Control Shift left and right. Not left and right buttons, but left and right angle brackets. Um, so those increase and decrease the font size versus having to perform multiple clicks all at once. So a lot of good tips to work through. And while I'm here, just don't, if a lot of these are coming at you one by one, um, don't memorize them all at once because every button on the keyboard does something. So these are more so the miscellaneous ones, just useful to have. You might not be using them in every day, but if you want to perform a certain action or you end up doing one of these things a lot, it'd be good to memorize one or two or a handful of them. And then here, almost at the end, is some hidden treasures, character shortcuts. So ellipses, if you hit Control Alt and right angle bracket in Microsoft Word, it gives an automatic ellipses for you. It just produces the three dots right there. So you're still using three keystrokes, but we can ignore that. You're hitting three buttons, kind of the same way you'd hit period three times, but kind of makes me question why it's there. But you know what? It's there. Microsoft Word has a lot of secrets. Why is it there? That's one of the secrets. Let's move to the next one. Accented characters. Control, apostrophe, and a letter. It makes an accented character for you. And sometimes this can be really useful if you're working with international documents or you're working with something in another language and you want to insert one of these versus having to go to a specific Microsoft Word menu or surfing the internet for this. Just hit Control apostrophe A at the same time. It produces the accented A and so on for other vowels. So that is good. And then dashes. Hold on. So you're saying there are shortcuts for dashes? Yes, there are shortcuts for dashes. I was very excited to learn about this because it's another one of those time saving things. There are shortcuts for the different types of dashes you want to use. And especially as a technical writer, you can tell that it's a lot of times it can be important which type of dash you use because the single hyphen can be used for one thing, an end dash a little longer can be used for another thing, usually for ranges or separate or connecting values, connecting dates. M dashes for when you have a pause in a sentence, for example. So especially in TechCom, dashes are important, and it can be a hassle trying to get the right dash you want in Microsoft Word without just going to the internet and typing in Google N dash, M dash, Google, please help me. What dash do I need to use for this? Or where can I find these dashes? There are shortcuts for them. So I just put a little blurb I found for the types of dashes that are there. Um, oh, are there shortcuts for the shortcuts? Yes. Microsoft Word has many, many secrets for these shortcuts. Um, and just a little bit on the dashes. N dashes typically denotes range of numbers. M dashes are usually for pauses in sentence, or a dash between clauses. This is from an article called Inserting Different Dashes by Alan Wyatt. So that's just a little bit on why. And on the right is how to put them, the main part. So the normal dash, you hit the minus key, simple enough. But then the next two are where the shortcuts really come in. So if you have a numpad on your computer, interestingly enough, these shortcuts only work on if for the minus key that's on the numpad. So just keep that in mind if you're using the control shortcuts. So control plus the minus on the keypad produces an N dash, the middle size dash. Um, and control plus minus, oh, sorry, I forgot to put that on there. Control alt and minus on the keypad puts the M dash in there, right where you want it. So you can see the bits of differences there. Control plus dash, control alt plus dash produces the N and the M dashes. But what if you don't have a keypad or you don't want to do that? In comes alt all over again. If you hold down the alt key and then hit a series of numbers, you can put in your own characters manually. These are just N dashes. It's pretty cool to do research into just how many characters you can make with this sort of thing. Um, just alt key plus a series of numbers can produce pretty much any kind of character you can think of. But for this specific example, hold down alt, type in 0150, you make an N dash. It just appears. Poof. And then alt plus 0151 makes an M dash right there in front of you. Poof. Um, so these ones good to keep in mind if you're working with different kinds of dashes, and especially ones that are just finicky to use in Word sometimes. And yeah, exactly. Just like Jessica, you said in the chat, Word tries to help you out sometimes. It can replace a dash you type in with the wrong dash. Yeah, so sometimes Word does have a mind of its own. If you put a dash in between words, sometimes it makes it longer for you, or it decides to do what it wants. This is a way of kind of overcoming that, because if you're working in Word and you put a hyphen or just a regular dash, it changes it based on, oh, you want this kind of dash, do you? Sometimes it's helpful, but if you're trying to be very specific with which one you use, it's good to stick with the shortcuts, because then you're the one doing it, not Microsoft Word trying to do it for you. And here are just some final tips on the keyboard shortcuts and Microsoft Word. So practice, practice, practice. I'm sure many of you have a lot of the shortcuts memorized already, but for some of the lesser known ones, it's good to just keep them in mind and know that they exist, and then try to find reference material or write them down, put them in a notepad, write them on a notepad, and then just use them in your everyday practices. Say you're working with a lot of papers and you want hanging indents without having to go through all the work. Just memorize Control T and then try to use that more and more as you work on your papers. And soon enough, it becomes memory. So practice is the important one for any of these keys, common or uncommon. You can combine multiple tricks to get work done much faster. We saw that with selecting, where Control left and right hops with one word, Control Shift left and right hops with another word, and then just go crazy with it. Control X to copy it, Control V to paste it. Just start using all these shortcuts interconnected with each other, and you'll be surprised by how much work you can get done, how much time you can get saved with lots of shortcuts in quick succession. And as I mentioned throughout it too, some shortcuts are universal. They're not just for Word. So if you're in Chrome, for example, um, some of these transfer over to there, like Control P prints the page and so on and so forth. Um, and if you're just in any typing application, chances are uses a lot of the common ones, if not the uncommon ones as well. So just keep the shortcuts in mind whenever you're trying to type or work with a file of some kind. Um, and memorize them for actions you do often. Again, another highlight to Control S, just always be saving. if you know you're going to be doing something a lot and you haven't mastered the shortcut for it, definitely master the shortcut, because something you do a lot that takes a long time or can take a significant amount of time to do, if you memorize the shortcut, you're saving a lot of time and hassle to just perform those actions. And lastly, just don't be afraid to test things out. That's what I was doing for some of the research for the presentation, just looking at the keyboard and thinking, I haven't used that key before. What does it do? And then suddenly I figure out that it does something very useful. So test things out, even if you don't know what a shortcut is. Don't be afraid, because Control Z, it's got your back. You can always undo something. So feel free to experiment and just do your own thing whenever you're practicing with Word. And yep, Control Y repeats the last action. So Control Z, Control Y, if you're testing things out or something wrong happened, or you undid something that you didn't want to undo. If you want to undo your undo, the theme of this has just been there's shortcuts for everything, including shortcuts. So Control Z and Y are good for just hopping back and forward in time. So it's a safeguard for if you're trying to test things out or if you do something unintentionally.
Eh, John, if you don't mind me typing up in here for a second,
Yeah,
I only
definitely.
have Control Y because I know you guys are, you have a lot, your program is a lot more hands-on, but one of the craziest things you'll find yourself doing on the job is just getting this, which is what I'm doing right now, this glop of a Word document that's just a mess, and you need to reformat it quickly. And the best way to do that is to assign it to a template, but you can't always ensure that headings are assigned. So if you know you have to assign something, like you use Control Y as a strategy, you have to think about it. Like, okay, assign heading 3. Don't do anything else and just go all the way through my 100 pages. Control Y, Control Y. It'll be so much faster than doing it any other way. So it's just one of those things that you use, but you use carefully. I mean, if that makes like applying a style, like all the paragraphs are in this weird style and they just need to be in the normal style. You'll use it. Control Y. It's one of those weird things that you strategize with once you know it's there. It was years I didn't know it was there.
Mhm.
Madcap Flare has the F8 button for the same thing, and I use it the exact same way. I just sometimes I hit F8 and Word, and it does something bizarre. But that request action is a big deal when you're formatting a lot of text or a lot of content, which happens a lot on the job, unfortunately. But that one.
Yeah, it's definitely a useful key, and thanks for sharing your direct experience with it too. It can definitely be a big time saver, and even though we didn't dive into it today, when you're working with styles or you want to format a lot of things in a document at once, um, yeah, I agree. It can definitely be useful. And some of what you mentioned, I haven't done on my own yet either. So it's good to know that it stays especially useful when you're working with big documents too.
Yeah, very much so. The only problem with Control Y is you'll like hit the back key and forget that you did it, and then you Control Y and nothing happens. That's how you plan it.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you're like it's like you're disrupting the timeline of events. Like you go back in time, you're like, okay, let me go forward again, but you realized you did something you shouldn't have. Yeah, so very useful keys, but they got to be dangerous. You got to be careful when you use them, so that you don't disrupt your own work as well, like you said. But yeah, all these keys definitely very useful. And testing things when you're testing things out or formatting a lot of things on a page, Control Z, Control Y, they can be your best friends with styling, formatting, all of that. And finally, here are just some resources that you can use for yourself that I'd put together for just Microsoft Word shortcuts. There's an STC presentation on Microsoft Word shortcuts from last February or this recent February, getting Word to show you some love. And there's a webinar recording. There's the slides for it. It was a great presentation and delves even deeper into Microsoft Word than I only scratched the surface. This presentation goes a lot into detail and other things you can do, such as styling and other functionalities that make Word do your work for you, or ways to customize your Word experience. The next one, a very good one, is a PDF cheat sheet of all Word shortcuts. I'll be bringing that up shortly too because it's very good and I suggest downloading it. Um, I'll be doing that in a moment. And then there's also an article on essential shortcuts if you ever want to know just the basics and why they're important. there's that document as well. But very quick, I'll open up that PDF because you can even print it out and there everything is for you. So here's a PDF full of shortcut keys coming from the same presenter from the STC meeting. So as you can see, there's basic ones, some that apply in Microsoft Word, other ones that work in Microsoft Windows in general, working with files, working on your computer. Well, this list goes through all the shortcuts you can think of, basically, even going into Windows key shortcuts. So if you want one big cheat sheet of pretty much everything your keyboard can do, this is the one to have on hand. And it'll make for a good personal checklist of which ones do I know, which ones do I don't. You can test yourself, makes for some good practice there. And yeah, I'll definitely link this in the Discord chat, and I can just have it as a resource out there. It's a really useful PDF. So yeah, that is one that I just wanted to highlight. It's good to print out, good to memorize, good to practice with. And yeah, just definitely keep in mind these resources, and I'll be posting them. But that is about it for the presentation today and for the word shortcuts that we went through. So last slide is just to thank you. Thank you for coming by and for just practicing these shortcuts with me, for the activity, for sticking around. And hopefully we were able to teach you something about these shortcuts and ways that you can improve your productivity in Word, in and out of Word, because some of these are universal. So hopefully the resources help you. I'll be distributing the slides from this presentation too in our Discord. So keep a lookout for those resources and so many useful things that you should use your keyboard for. And one more shout out to what you just posted, Michael. Yes, Windows key plus period pops up emojis. That is a good one. I've heard of that one, and I forgot there was a keyboard shortcut for it. Windows key period. Yes, aka the best shortcut. Thanks, Michael. So yeah, works on browsers and other platforms too. So that's about it for the presentation. But thank you all for coming, and hopefully it can help. And if there's any comments or questions or discussion, I'll be sticking around a few minutes. I hope this was helpful.